Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Playing World of Tanks. I'm AJ, and today we'll be looking at a game that I had in my WZ111, which is the Chinese Tier 9 Heavy Tank. For those of you who are new to this channel, what we generally tend to do is we take a replay in which we did really well, and we break down what needed to be done to make it even better, because even though you might have had a great game, it can always be better in some respects. Now, initially, I go to this corner on the map because if you look at the field, there's only a couple of tanks holding the field, and I kind of thought that if I get into this corner relatively quickly, I'll be able to spot and perhaps put a couple of shots into whoever is trying to move into the field. And what I see in front of me is an IS-7, which tries to take a very aggressive position in the field. Now, I did not do the same thing because of a number of factors, which I'll go into. The biggest factor on this was that RD is still in play, and if you are a blue player in World of Tanks, you will notice that if there's an RD on the enemy team, generally they use XVM, and generally they will focus you down regardless of which tank or what tier you're playing. So for example, you could be a tier 7 scout and they will try to take you out even if there's tier 10 tanks around you. So once you become a decent player, you are always aware of the RD, always aware that whether you're already safe or not. Now at this point, I was trying to figure out where I need to go to be effective for my team, because how basically our team has deployed is they've deployed along a very narrow alliance, and they can be flanked relatively easily. If you look at the map, there is somebody actually guarding the field, so at least we know if some tank comes around that corner, but there's generally no one on the 0-9 line. So I decide that I can probably go there and at least hold out whoever is going to be aggressing along those lines, and perhaps my team will actually come and back me up. Now, if you see me backing away from this corner right here, was because generally there's TDs who camp in front of this corner and wait for whoever is the unsuspecting tank to drive in front, and then they shoot him in the face. At this point, there was two TDs that I hadn't accounted for. The 263 and the T30 were not actually spotted, and so I was just thinking to myself whether it was worth it to cross over here and lose half of my hit points. And at that point, I decided it kind of wasn't, so I took the long way around to get to the same corner, except from the other side. And by the time I get to the corner, I see that T110 E5 and T30 are locked in battles, and that was precisely one of the tanks I was kind of afraid of. So at this point, I was just trying to help the T110 E5 take out the T30 fast. I rushed my first shot, probably because I kind of figured if the T30 is loaded, he's just going to look in my direction and snapshot me, which happens more often than not. And I just kind of figured that if he sees an option between firing in the E5 and a WZ111, even if he doesn't understand what the armor layout is, he's generally going to assume that I'm the weaker as far as armor is concerned. So he's just going to take a shot in me instead of the threat that's right in front of him. Now, at this point, I've sort of like made it into the middle of the map, and this is a very good position to hold the 0-8, the lines between 8-9 and 0, and that's because over here you get the option to sort of like hide yourself after you're done firing. It's also really good to cover the long reload of the WZ111, which is pretty long, but it's not actually that bad. And so I come over here and decide to take out the 263, which was actually the more important target, but the IS-8 kind of reverses into my shot, saving the 263 some of his hit points. At this point, I kind of realized I had no good shots at the 263, so I might as well attack the target that's in front of me. So I decided to put the rest of my shots into the IS-8, who is in a really bad position where he is, because the position he's in is only good for like one tank, but if there's two tanks, they manage to push each other out of the corner, and that makes it easier for whoever's trying to attack him to sort of get shots in. Also, another good development was that the 260 actually got taken out even without my assistance, which was what we kind of needed at this point. Now I see the T-54 aggressing onto our JPZ, So I decided to go back and actually help the JPZ. Unfortunately for me, my shot that I tried tracking him, the 254, just manages to avoid it. I don't think he was conscious of the fact I was trying to track him. He just moved when, I fired in. I didn't track him, which probably cost the JPZ his life. But at this point, like, there was nothing I could do about it. Now I tried to actually kill the 254 in the gap between the JPZ's corpse, but unfortunately the JPZ actually absorbs my shot and the 254 survives, but not for long, because the bad chat actually does a drive-by and takes out the 254, which distracts the E75 long enough for me to kind of put another shot in his turret. At first you see me aiming for his lower plate, but then as his turret's not facing my direction, it's an easy pin for my gun. And the Yak Tiger comes around the corner on the distracted E75 and takes him out. Now at this point, the very good thing about my team was that the surviving actually members kind of listened to what I wanted to say, and what I kind of told them that we should do is actually take out the isolated tanks that were left. So E75 was the first target because he was isolated very close to us by himself. And so the bad chat goes the long way around. The Yak Tiger and me take more of the direct route towards the E75, and basically the E75 has no chance of surviving 3 tanks converging onto his location. Now before I could make a decision as to which tank should we approach next, the T-28 basically presents himself as the next target of opportunity, because he's also isolated in front of our guns. The Yak Tiger and I basically make really quick work of him, though I was kind of surprised that the Yak Tiger did not actually put or manage to pin both of his shots on the T-28, because it has relatively no armor if you know what you're shooting at. Now at this point, the Yak Panther 2 is the only other threat within the city that we have to eliminate. I also make a mental note of RD firing in my direction and how he missed. There's only 1 or 2 places in my mind where the RD could be sitting to have shots in that direction, and later on, once we actually kill the Yak Panther 2, I actually ping on the map where I think the RD is. Now taking out the Yak Panther 2 is basically a straightforward deal. There's 3 tanks and he is alone. He decides that he was gonna pin whatever is in front of him, and that happens to be me. He manages to track me on one of his shots, which was somewhat lucky, and then I guess to make up for my luck, he pins me on the move. So kind of evens out in that regard, I suppose. Now at this point, the only 3 tanks left on the enemy team, and there's 4 tanks on our team. And the biggest thing at this point was to figure out where the IS-7 was. And I kind of thought that the IS-7, given what we were doing in the city, would take a really direct route and try to help his teammates instead. And so that was the assumption I was working under as I tried to go to the field and find him. Turns out the IS-7 had absolutely no interest in helping his teammates whatsoever. He was taking the longest way humanly possible to find the RD and then somehow go into our cab. So that assumption on my part basically cost me about 1,000 hit points, because I rush into the field in front of an IS-7 who's more or less, in the perfect situation that he can find himself in, and he manages to pin both of his shots on my tank, and I don't manage to pin my shot in return. And so at that point, the RD basically saves my bacon and actually takes him out. Although I was really thinking I was kind of done for over there. Now there was that one scout and an RD that we had missed. So I basically pinged to the bat chat where I think the RD is, and he basically goes and eliminates the RD. That leaves the M41, which nobody knows where he is. But seeing where I was spotted and remembering in my mind the initial trees which I saw like fall down in front of me, I think that the M41 is basically sitting in those same trees, because he had a pretty easy opportunity to kill me. So if he didn't kill me, then either he has gone AFK or he's just disconnected. So I drive forward, pinged on the map where I think the M41 is, and the team converges and takes him out. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode of Playing World of Tanks.